Vinyl community, I'm back to do a recent vinyl finds video, and first of all I want to thank everyone who commented and wrote all the nice things in my 10-year anniversary, sort of 10 years in the VC video. Yeah, super happy for all the comments, and it was nice to just reminisce a little bit about the last 10 years in the VC and life in general really. If you haven't seen that, if you're interested obviously, go back and check that out. Okay, so where not to start, but at the end of the 10-year anniversary video, and Will Malone. So if you want to know how I obtained this super duper mega rarity, check that video out. I tell the entire story of how I got it. Okay, so Will Malone, he wanted to be an arranger of music. He really, in early age, I think he said in an interview, like from 12 years, he knew that he wanted to be an arranger. And early on, he joined or made a band called Orange Bicycle. It sort of recorded a record, but they didn't release it at first. He got a job at Morgan Bluetown Records, or Morgan Records. I don't really know what his role was in the studio, but he convinced one of the owners or the owner to record his first solo record, and this got him the opportunity to arrange string arrangements. The guy said that, yeah, you can do it, but just do it in fast like sessions. So he spent no time at all, and this is the result. Vad gör du, katten? Nej, katten, ge mig den. Katten. Släpp den. 1, 2, 3. Folk masterpiece, UK folk masterpiece, 1970. I don't know what to say more. Okay, so two seconds about the cover artwork. I love this artwork. Will Malone says that he doesn't think it's a good photo. I couldn't agree less. The artwork is done by Kef, and Kef did some of the Vertigo, like swirl records in the early 70s, like Black Sabbath's first. He did the photo for that. Affinity was US first records, Colosseum. So if you know those, you know the style. Will Malone said in an interview that the only ones who bought a record when this was released was him, his mom, and his girlfriend at the time. No one else heard the record. It sold extremely poorly, and I actually don't know how many copies are out there today of this original piece, but it's not many copies at all. So yeah, I think that's it. It's a super grail. Orange Bicycle released one record just months after this, and I got that too on original. Later on, he did a project with Boba Johns and Malone, I think they were called. They released Motherlight, also a psychedelic masterpiece of a record. It's expensive, not this expensive, but expensive and hard to find, and really good, but it sold poorly also. So nothing that he did was selling and pulling in those numbers. Will Malone later ventured on in music business to be an arranger, and he's mostly known for the string arrangements in Bittersweet Symphony, the Verve song. So and everyone has heard that. That's Will Malone. Needless to say, I'm super glad to own this now. Okay, so today Bill Cosby is not a popular name, but he was in the 90s, I guess, 80s maybe. But 1971 he released this, or produced at least, Bill Cosby Presents Bedford Brown and the Bunyan Bradford Funeral Marching Band on Juni 1971. It's a gatefold, and you know how the Uni label looks, but there it is. This is a jazz funk, I'm not saying masterpiece, but it's really, really good, and it's cheap heat. You can get this for like 10 euro, so get it. It's super good. 2 songs, one on each side, the other one a little bit more mellow than the other. And thank you, Christopher, for letting me know about this. I got a copy, I think, the same day as you sent the links to this. The next records I'm going to show you, this is a power trio from the US, a heavy power trio. And in 1970, they released their first record. And it's sort of strange, but I've had a hard time finding this. This is Dust, 1970. Iconic cover, isn't it? Heavy rock outfit. And there's some third tracks on this, I have to be honest. There are some tracks that is just mind-blowingly good, like From a Dry Camel, the first track on the second side. That's a hell of a song, let me tell you. And I don't know if I've ever heard any heavier heavier records than this on the Kama Sutra label, but I'm having a hard time remembering which other artist that was on that label. I got this for a steal because it was downgraded as hell. It's in perfect condition. So by the same seller, I actually managed to find a copy of their second release also. So I went from not looking for this for years, even one of them, and finding both in perfect condition. This is Hard Attack, not Heart Attack, Hard Attack. Also with that sort of iconic cover. So not the first press. I think the first press Kama Sutra was pink. So this is a second or a third US press. Heavy as shit. This is better. Better than the first one. This has more good solid tracks. And the first one, Pull Away So Many Times, is insanely. Okay, so the next one, we're going back to the UK. And this band is hailed as the best unknown UK band in history by critics, and I'm talking about, and I'm slaughtering the name here, Bashdenkel, and the title of the record is Lemmings. Swedish. They recorded this in 1970 and they shopped around for a label to release it, but no one wanted to release it, which is just like insane today. But yeah, that was the case. So the band moved to France, and I think that the French side of Philips Records released this in 1973, so 3 years after it was recorded. This is definitely on par with any UK prog. It's as good as Pink Floyd, Genesis, Yes, any of those like really proggy bands. Unfortunately, this is a reissue from 1978, the second press, and it doesn't sound that good. So I'm gonna continue looking for a Philips press of this, and hopefully it sounds better, because this deserves to sound fantastic. Let's travel to Finland and to a guy called Ilpo Sastamoinen. I won't slaughter the title of the record, but what this is a Love Records first Finnish press of this masterpiece. Is it prog? Yes, I think I'll put it with my prog records, but I would as easily put it in the jazz section actually of my collection. Because it's a pass or a jog. I just invented 2 new genres. Psychedelic jazz, maybe. Ilpo started out in big bands with the drummer Edward Vasala, which is a pretty known Finnish jazz artist. And in 1976, I think that this was released. Yeah, recorded in 1975. He got the opportunity for Love Records to record this. And what you get is a mind-blowingly good Nordic prog jazz record. It's heavily rooted in classical music, and you can really hear that on the second side because they do a cover of Bach's Air. It's fantastic. But at the same time, there's whimsical sort of Samla Mamas Manna or Zappa-esque moments on this where they really freak out. And there's some moments on this where you get like almost jazzy sort of jams. But the last song on the second side, or if it's the second to last song on the second side, is so dark. It reminds me of sort of a horror movie soundtrack, or I don't know if I've heard something like that since I heard Comus. Like almost, you almost get frightened when it comes out of the speakers, and he sings in Finnish, so I don't understand what he sings about. Maybe a girlfriend or something. I have no idea, but it scares me to death. So highly recommended. This is a masterpiece. I'm super glad I got a original press of this. It's rare as hell, but Svart Records re-released this not too long ago, so you can get the reissue of this pretty easily, I think. I befriended a guy who owns a record store up in north of Sweden. He hooked me on with that copy. So thank you so much. I know he watches my videos. Aj, Lisa! Kiss katten. Cheers! Again, going back to the UK, this is Skin Alley. Skin Alley released this in 1970. They released 3 records in their lifetime. The first one is a little bit more heavy, and that's the best one, to be honest. And the last one, I had that, is, I think, their attempt to release their music in the US, so more radio friendly, and it's not a good record, to be honest. I sold it. But when I saw this, a guy online sold this because the cover looks like this. I got it for a fraction of the price it goes for, so I couldn't resist really to buy it and give it a chance. The record sounds perfect. It's in VG+++++, but it's proggy. It's the most proggy of the 3 records, definitely. More keys than wailing guitars, I can tell you that. Worst thing about it is really the singing. Turns you off a little bit, but yeah, I'm glad I have it. I'll see if I'll play it a few times more, and maybe I'll sell it. Okay, so for me, this I think that these 2 records that I'm going to show you now and talk about is probably for me the coolest records of the bunch. It's not... Okay, so the next 2 records is probably my favorite ones of the bunch. Everyone's a favorite, but these 2, I'm really pleased to be able to add this to the collection. Iron Car, as I said in my vinyl tag video, Iron Car is maybe the artist that I've ventured into most last year. He's a British trumpet player. He started out in the 60s, and mid-60s he joined or made a group with Don Rendell and released some of the most important British records, jazz records in the country's history. So damn good, and I've shown those reissues because they are stupidly expensive. In 1970 he released the first Nucleus project, Elastic Rock, I think it's called, and this is full-blown fusion. I don't know if he looked towards the US and saw what Miles were about to do. At least blending jazz and rock was a thing, and Nucleus was adapting that. I managed to get a UK Vertigo Swirl first press in mint condition some moons ago, and I want all Nucleus records because Nucleus hasn't released a single bad track, like a single bad moment in their entire catalog. It's insane, but they are on Vertigo, they are on Vertigo Swirl, and they are highly collectible, very pricey, and insanely hard to get because no one is getting rid of their record. So what I managed to do was hunt down and get this, their second one. This is, we'll talk about it later, from 1971. The second Nucleus record. It's about the same lineup. I think it's the same lineup. Is a Spaceship label. So we'll talk about it later. Is definitely the most heavy fusion record I've heard, I think. If you take records like that came later, like Bitches Brew or Mahavishnu Orchestra, like I talked about earlier, or even Return to Forever, one of those fusion bands, this is more rooted in the rock sort of section of the genre. And you can hear that on the first track, which just bursts out. It's on fire of the speakers. Song for the Bearded Lady. It rips up the start of this record. So when the sort of US counterpart is a little bit more spiritual, maybe, in the sound, at least in my ears, this is more on the rock side. This is a great masterpiece of a jazz record. I kid you not. My favorite up to this date of the ones that I've listened to, my favorite Nucleus records. Now from the same seller, and I'm gonna talk about how I obtained these later on. From the same seller, I actually also got the third one. This is Solar Plexus by Iron Car with Nucleus. So Iron Car got a scholarship or something like that. Yeah, something from the government to do a project, and he assembled a team that ended up being like Nucleus Plus. So Nucleus and a lot of other English musicians. And he wanted to do a more of a big band sort of composition. So they went into the studio and recorded this. You have Kenny Wheeler, Harry Beckett, Brian Smith, Tony Roberts, Carl Jenkins, Chris Badding again on guitar. He was on the first two also, Jeff Klein. This has synthesizers, it has 2 bass players, it has percussion, and it has Chris Badding's fantastic guitar on it. This is the only thing I think that if you compare the other Nucleus records, I don't think that the musicians as an individual get the same amount of air beneath their wings on this one, because there's so many players. So, but as a unity, they work perfectly. But on the other 2 records earlier, they get some more space to really fly. And this is actually on the Swirl label. So the other one was on the Spaceship label. This is on the Swirl with the original inner sleeve. The record is in unplayed condition. So how did I obtain these? Well, I have a want list on Discogs like everyone else, and every morning when I wake up there's a new email waiting for me with 100 records compiled of stuff that I'm looking for. And one morning when I went out there, a guy was selling this, but the quality of the record cover was poor. And the vinyl was in, I think, VG minus or G plus or something like that. But something told me, like, check this out. So I went into his sort of profile, and I saw that he had never sold a record. He was completely new to selling stuff on Discogs. So I just emailed him saying, can you send me a photo of the record? And he did. It looked like this. And to me, this is not poor. This is in very, very good condition. And he said he's selling his uncle's records, and he hasn't played them in so long, and he doesn't know how to really grade the record. But there was writing on the backside and some storage wear and stuff like that, shelfware. So that's how he graded them. I bought the record, but I also bought 5 other ones from this seller. And after this, and this is back in October, November, and then Brexit came, and they were in the customs for I don't know how long. But during this time, maybe for the 6 records I paid a fraction of the price, like a fifth of the price maybe, that I could get for them, or he could get for them. But during this time when I bought them from him and everything was packed up and sent, I actually helped him grade the rest of his uncle's records, and I helped him, like, telling him how to pack and how to sell and stuff like that. So now he is pricing them correctly, and with the rest of them that I didn't want, and has a good thing going for him. So do I have a bad conscience of buying these very cheaply? No, I don't. I've spent hours every day looking for records, reading about records, listening to records, and I've done so many years. I've spent so much money on records, so I just feel like sometimes you get lucky, and I guess I got lucky, and I did what I did to sort of compromise the bad feelings for getting them so cheaply. But yeah, I'm just happy to obtain them. So that's 2. I have 4 to show you in another update. This was definitely a want list item. This is the second press on orange DRAM, and it's the 1970 Egg record. Once again, I got this for 20 euro, I think, because the cover is in such bad condition. I bought this from Germany, but the record is in perfect condition. Now, this record, it says here on the backside, the music on this LP is not dancing music, but basically music to listen to. And I agree, you can't dance really to this. This is a full-blown, perfect UK prog record. Yeah, Egg. fantastic music, very rooted in classical music. So if you're a prog fan, a UK prog fan, this is a no-brainer. It's one of the best. Super glad to add that to the collection. This one, I'm blown away. 1978, private pressed. This is Jan Duindam's Thoughts, a Dutch, private pressed acid folk record. Rare as hen's teeth. I don't know how many was pressed back in 1978, but it couldn't be that many. And the label looks like this. It's impossible not to think of Nick Drake when you listen to the music. It's acoustic acid folk, but I think it's a little bit more poppy, so maybe a mix between Nick Drake and Cat Stevens, just to mention something. But with that sort of production from 1978. He was in some bands in Netherlands before doing this in 1978. He went into the studio with some friends from Solution, another prog band from the Netherlands, and recorded this acoustic folk. It's insanely good. Some of the tracks are electric, where the friends really party out, but it's a very quiet record, in the same vein as Nick Drake. What strikes me when the needle lands in the grooves is the fidelity quality. The sound quality is insane. The acoustic guitar picking is just throwing itself out from the speakers, creating a fantastic soundstage. I don't know how they did it, but I mean, when you buy a private pressed record, I don't think that, in my opinion, I don't have any sort of high expectations of the fidelity, but man, it sounds great. This was reissued in 2013, so if you want a less expensive copy, you can get the reissue. I'm glad to have found an original of this, not super easy to get. Okay, so the last one, and this is in the background we have my copy of Dr. Strangely Strange Heavy Petting, 1970 I think, or 71. That's a Vertigo record, a first German Vertigo Swirl record, a favorite amongst my folk records. It's insanely good, and it has one of the best prog songs of all songs on it, called Sign on My Mind. But finding their first one on Island would be tough, to say the least. Collecting sort of friend, a guy I befriended during the years as a Swedish collector, got a hold of me saying he had a copy of this, but with a rough cover. Asked me if I wanted it, so we haggled back and forth, and I got it for a very, very good price. It has a sticker rip there and some creasing, but otherwise it's in okay condition. You have Klaus writing his name there, and it cost €1 when the guy who owned this back then sold it. Yeah, so Kip of the Serenes by Dr. Strangely Strange, their first one from 1969. And it was released on the Bullseye Pink Island label back in the day. A fantastically beautiful label. I mean, Vertigo Swirl and Island Records is probably my favorite labels, and with this band you get both. So this is folk, definitely. Freak folk, maybe I would say. It's very whimsical, and if you listen to this in the background cooking or something like that, I guess you could like mix it up with something of a comedy record or something like that. But if you sit down and listen to it, you get so rewarded, because it's a dark record, really. If you listen to Dark Haired Lady, the fourth track on the first side, it's really dark, and it has this sort of, I don't know, undefinable darkness to it. I can't really put my finger on it. They are not the best singers in the world, they are not the best musicians in the world, but what this hippie sort of collective of musicians does works perfectly on the record. It's been reissued. You can get the reissue pretty easy, I think, but sample it online first before you buy it. So the second one was definitely my favorite of the two, and I still think that the best song is Sign of My Mind. That song is fantastic. But as an album, as a whole, this has taken the first place. Because every time I listen to this, and I've spun it a lot of times since I got it, I find new favorite things on the record. It's so damn good. If you just listen to it and really put your focus in and give it the time it needs. So yeah, that's it. I hope you dug some of the records. If you have any comments, please comment down below. You can ask questions or correct me. If you have stuff you want to write, just write them down and I'll answer as soon as I can. So until next time, have a good day. Bye.